It's Stan Veit's History of the Personal Computer. From Altair to IBM, A History of the PC Revolution. By Stan Veit, Editor-in-Chief Emeritus, Computer Shopper. Copyright 1993 and 2026 by Stan Veit and A-Books Creativity Incorporated. Read by Randy Kindig and David Greelish.
Chapter 22. How do you make a company disappear? In 1976, Carl Galletti, a member of the Amateur Computer Club of New Jersey, was able to buy a number of discontinued video terminals made by Xitan for ITT Data Services, which was out of business at that time. These terminals, called ASCII scopes, had been in storage for a long time and were not considered serviceable. Therefore, they were sold very cheaply as is. Carl and his friends found that they could cannibalize the terminals and produce serviceable equipment. Once repaired, these ASCII scopes had every feature you could ever want in a terminal, and in addition, they had a built-in modem and a printer port. Once repaired, Carl sold them for $500 to $700 to eager computer hobbyists who got years of service out of them. The only reason that I mention them is that the sale of the ASCII scopes generated the capital for the founding of a very innovative company called Technical Design Labs, which started in business in 1976. TDL, as it was called, was located in Trenton, New Jersey, and was one of the first microcomputer manufacturers located on the East Coast.
TDL's initial product was one of the first S100 Z80 CPU boards, and it was introduced at the first personal computer show in Atlantic City, New Jersey in August 1976. There was no Z80 software to take advantage of the power of the new chip, but the Z80 could run all of the existing 8080 software since the 8080 instruction set was a subset of the Z80 instructions. TDL also supplied a copy of Roger Amidon's Zapple monitor, modified from his famous 8080 monitor program Apple, no relation to the Apple computer. Roger used the name first, but never copyrighted it. Later, TDL came out with a complete line of Z80 software, including an excellent basic, text editor, and formatter, and a debugger. And there is a picture at the top of this page, and it simply says, "Picture of Xitan meeting." And just to point out, at the forefront at the table, second from the left, is Dee Veit, Stan's wife, and right behind her is Stan. And it does say who some of the other people are, but I won't read those.
The Z80 CPU was a great success. The firm grew and came out with other boards, including I/O boards and memory boards. TDL moved to Princeton, New Jersey, and introduced a system monitor board, which had both serial and parallel ports, a fast cassette interface, and the Zapple monitor in ROM. They had trouble with the first version of this board, called the SMB1, but improved it, and the SMB2 was a success. Next, TDL came out with a line of complete computers under the product name Xitan. It came in several models, Alpha 1, 2, and 3, and had only 8 S100 slots, because the SMB2 board and the large-size memory board provided many functions. The Xitan computers had no internal video interface. They used one of the ASCII scopes or relied on the owner's choice of low-cost video terminals, which by then were available from several manufacturers, such as Xitan, Sorok, or Lear-Siegler. The Xitan was designed to use cassette data storage, which was the standard of that time. But increasingly, owners added floppy disks from Northstar, ICOM, Micropolis, or any other disk system that could interface to the Xitan.
In 1977, TDL ran into trouble because they were unable to obtain the semi-static memory chips they used in their memory boards. The manufacturer had problems in making the chips, and some of the units failed to underuse. This caused serious cash flow problems at TDL because they were unable to ship ordered systems and boards, and they had to repair all the defective boards returned by previous customers. In an effort to solve these problems, TDL, which was an engineering company not wise in the ways of business, called in a, quote, business assistance group, unquote, to advise and help them. No one seems to know what happened, but quick as a wink, TDL was out of business, and a new company called Xitan emerged from the ashes with the, quote, business experts, unquote, in the saddle. Some of the founders found themselves on the outside looking on in bewilderment.
From that point on, the plot got even thicker. The new owners went to the major computer stores on the East Coast and made them a proposition they could not afford to refuse. The Computer Mart stores and a few other independent stores were affiliated in a buying company called XYZ Computers, and we had a group contract with TDL. Therefore, we were the first group approached. The new company, Xitan, was going to produce a supercomputer called the General. This machine had specifications far in advance of anything produced up to that time. It would be a self-contained computer with video and floppy disks built in, and it would run the most fantastic software, including graphics, word processing, spreadsheet, and database. Remember, this was back in 1978, and they were offering software better than that used on large minis.
The General would have a 4 MHz Z80B CPU plus an interrupt controller plus a 4-channel DMA controller. It had 4 sets of memory mapping to permit foreground and background memory of multitasking operation. The keyboard was composed of 77 reed switches, including a numeric keypad and special function keys. The video section generated 80 characters by 24 lines with upper-lower case characters. It had protected fields and graphic capabilities with 2 levels of intensity. The video had a separate 4K by 16 bits memory of fast static RAM. There was even a B and C connector for connection to a video tape recorder. Naturally, such a wonderful computer had a super operating system in ROM to support it, but for future expansion, there was provision for 96K of additional ROM. The General would come with 33K of RAM, a lot for 1978, but you could add up to 128K if you needed it. Later expansion to 1 megabyte was promised. The floppy disk system would store a full megabyte, and you could add external drives to increase this. Hard drives would come later.
These specifications sound more like 1988 than 1978 and were not stupid. However, Xitan seemed to be willing to pay us if we ordered, and they did not produce what they promised. They also offered terms of net 30 for payment. In addition, we would not have fallen for all this except Neil Colvin, the head of TDL's software division, later the founder of Phoenix Technology, said he could do it. In addition, Xitan promised that they would meet all shipping dates, and they would put in writing and pay damages if they did not make the dates. The discount was substantial, and we would become the exclusive dealers. It looked like a license to print money. Now, if we turned it down, they would go to our competitors and give them the exclusive dealerships. We saw a chance to make a lot of money, and we did not want it going out the front door. There's a picture here on this page that shows the front of a Xitan brochure, which shows a machine and several of the boards.
So we all made out delivery schedules for Generals and the existing Xitan Alpha computers, and the company sent us written contracts. The contracts contained all of the promises they had made. Everything was in order, in writing. I was ready to sign. The only person who was not convinced was my wife, Dee Dee. She had her famous rubber stamp, which read, bullshit. And when I gave her my copy to read, she used the stamp wherever she thought something was too good to be true. I was very angry at her for defacing my copy.
Xitan held a big meeting in Princeton and demonstrated the General prototype. It did not do everything in the specs as yet, but we saw enough to convince us it would work as promised. We then had a meeting to answer questions about the contracts. It seems that not one brought a copy to the meeting except Dee Dee, so they asked to see her copy. Forgetting about the rubber stamp, I put it on the table. When the other dealers saw the bullshit stamped all over the contract, It generated a lively discussion. However, the Xitan people had answers to all the questions. Their clincher was, look, we're willing to give you 30 days to pay, and we will pay you damages if we don't ship on time. What more could we do to convince you? That seemed to answer all the questions. We all signed on the dotted line. Xitan people then took our signed contracts to the bank and borrowed money to operate and to build a general. So far, so good. We all visited the plant to see the progress, and it looked like they were legitimate.
All the dealers placed ads in magazines offering the General, and we started taking orders. I signed a contract to deliver Generals for a franchise company selling income tax software systems to accountants and quite a few other systems. We did notice that a mail order company was offering Xitan Alpha equipment at a retail for less than we were paying wholesale. We protested to the company. They told us that the former owners had removed a lot of merchandise and sold it to this mail order house for a very low price. As soon as it was gone, that would be the end of it. There would be no more cut rate machines. Meanwhile, we could have another 30 days to pay for our merchandise. Then one day I received a frantic call from the head of Xitan asking me to pay for the equipment I had received. We paid the bill, but withheld some money because we had not yet received our scheduled first shipment of the General. We started to smell something bad in Princeton. And then there's a small picture on this page at the top says, from the back of the Xitan brochure, it sure seemed like lots of support was available. And the pictures of some manuals and a cassette recorder, diskette, some cassette tapes.
At this time, there was a big computer show at Madison Square Garden in New York, and we both had a large booth. I had been promised a General to exhibit at the show, and a number of prospective buyers were coming to see it. What they delivered was a defective unit with an external power supply because they said there was trouble with the special power units they had ordered. I refused the computer because I did not want to let my customers see it after all my buildup of the General. Then one morning, I got a frantic call from one of the Xitan employees I was friendly with. I was told the entire company had disappeared overnight. No one knew where they were or that they were going. How do you disappear a company overnight?
I jumped in my car and drove to Princeton to see for myself. Sure enough, it was gone. Lock, stock, and barrel. Goodbye, Xitan. The building was empty. Swept clean, even. Several weeks later, I received a phone call from Humbling, the head of the company. He said they had merely moved to a new and expanded plant at a Cape Cod Cranberry Bog location. They moved at night because of a disagreement with their landlord. They didn't pay the rent. Would I please pay my bill? Sure, I told them. Just send me some Generals to fill my orders. People were getting angry. I would even pay COD for them. I got no Generals, although others got Xitan boards and Alphas out of the Cranberry Bog before they again flew the coop and disappeared for good. One of the swindlers surfaced in a Midwestern city and had a retailer clapped in jail overnight for non-payment and receipt of goods. He never appeared to press the charges, and a good thing for him because a posse of angry people was converging on that city.
The story of Xitan was one of the less pleasant ones in our industry. However, some of the original founders of TDL acquired the rights to some of the excellent software and formed a company called Computer Design Labs to sell and maintain it. Neil Colvin reorganized the software branch of TDL in Cambridge, Massachusetts, into Phoenix Technologies and produced the first legal PC BIOS. While walking through the flea market at the Trenton Computer Show in 1984, I spotted an interesting computer on the ground next to a used computer booth. It was the prototype General, and it still didn't work.
Now that's a good story.
That is a good story. That's an incredible story, actually.
So as we were
And
talking
I love the
before,
way it ended.
go ahead.
I was just saying, I love the way he ended it as well.
And as we were talking, we couldn't find much about it. And we found a little bit, and we'll share those links in the show notes. And but now TDL, I knew a little something about them because I've owned a few different S100 computers in my time. So I've had a couple of TDL boards. I want to say they were memory boards. It was a long time ago. But I put a link here if you look at the one from S100 computers.com. So here's a nice, a really good page with a picture of the TDL system monitor board, a RAM adapter board. So I know with some other ones. Anyway, I guess there's only two. I thought there were three boards here. But so they were like a really viable company there for a while making S100 boards. And I guess they tried to expand too quick and too far. That's actually one like a very common reason that a lot of smaller businesses fail. They try to expand, too quickly or too much.
Too fast. Yeah. Yeah, it definitely sounds like they tried to take on too much at once. It sounds like the general the specs on that were incredible for the time. That was pretty amazing.
And then who knew they'd later go on to sell car insurance? You know what I'm talking about? You ever seen those commercials?
Right. The general. Yeah.
And anyway, not to get off on that subject, but they used to have that really terrible CGI general, and they've kind of improved. They've improved him a lot over the years. So I did also find, here's another page, another link in the show notes, and it shows all these it shows like an internal for, what is this? Anyways, it talks a little bit about the story, shows a Xitan computer. It looks like the Computer History Museum, they have one. And maybe I'll add that one too. It just doesn't say much, but this one's the most interesting. This link from Classic Technical Design Labs, TDL, Princeton, New Jersey. And then it talks about it, but it actually has a picture and it says TDL employees after the company moved without notice. And they're like all standing around in an empty office. Like, what the heck? What happened?
That's an exciting picture, I bet.
Yeah, a little bit of comments, but not much more to say. Just that's a good story, interesting story. What a shame.
It is, and I would bet very few people, unless you've read Stan's book, wouldn't know about this story. I sure didn't.
I knew about it from reading this in the past, and I had mostly forgotten about it. But I remember this story also sort of stood out to me. From the book. I remember that one where they disappeared overnight. It's like, what the heck? I wonder how that group of people, how they just took the business. I wonder how that happened. Like a hostile takeover?
Yeah, I don't know. We'll probably never know. I mean, I doubt anyone will take this story and, really dig in and try to get more information. A lot of the people who were involved at the time are probably not around anymore.
Like I say, especially it's over 40 years ago, so it's pretty hard to...
Right.
All righty. Well, with that being said, our next chapter is 23, The Triumph of the IBM PC. So that should be interesting.
That should be very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then again, just to mention, there's 28 chapters in the book, and there's an appendix about called A Remembrance of George Tate. So I kind of call that 29 chapters. So that means we've got, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 20. So 7 more to go. And we will have actually finished the book. So we're going to do it this year. This is the year.
We will. We'll get it in.
I'm happy to say, a little embarrassed to say, but I made that very first podcast recording 20 years ago, 2006.
Was it?
Yeah.
2006? Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. Okay. So... You know what? It might take 20 years, but we're getting it done. And thanks for your help.
We'll pick out another book, after this, and
no,
do it later. Yeah. But not take 20 years to do it. So
based on average lifespans, we might have to really hunker down. We'll shoot for a more reasonable 10 years.
Yeah, there we go.
To finish the next one. No, but we did pretty good, right? I mean, once we started doing this version of it, and we started, I don't remember now, when did we start? Late 25? I mean, 8 months ago? We don't have to look it up, but something like that. So we're going to finish it in a year. That's pretty good.
Yeah, the end's in sight, and I think the new format seems to be popular.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know why. I don't know why people would want to look at me, but it's certainly fun reading through Stan's stories again.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Well, you have a good
All right,
one.
man.
We'll see you next time.
You too. Thanks, everybody, for listening.